The studio lights were hot that night in 1982. Jerry Reed sat across from the host, relaxed, smiling, until the question came. What was Elvis really like? The room expected a laugh, maybe a funny story about recording sessions or late-night jam sessions at Graceland. Instead, Jerry's face changed. His smile died. He looked down at his hands like they were holding a secret too heavy to carry anymore. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked in a way that made the entire audience lean forward. What came next shattered everything. Most people do not understand how loneliness works when you are famous. Fame does not protect you from isolation. In fact, it guarantees it. Because the more people who know your name, the fewer people who know you. And Elvis Presley, despite being surrounded by dozens of people every single day, was one of the loneliest men Jerry Reed had ever known. Jerry was not part of the Memphis Mafia. He was never on the payroll, never lived at Graceland, never wore matching jumpsuits or carried Elvis's scarves or played bodyguard at 3 in the morning. That distance, that separation from the machine, made him something rare in Elvis's life. A friend who had nothing to gain. Most people around Elvis needed him, depended on him, built their entire lives on proximity to his light. Jerry did not need Elvis to survive. He had his own career, his own hits, his own path. So when Elvis called him late at night, Jerry knew it was not about business. It was about escape. The first time it happened was in 1968. The phone rang at 2 in the morning. Jerry answered half asleep, expecting some emergency, some crisis. Instead, he heard Elvis's voice, quiet, almost tentative. "You awake, Jerry?" Jerry rubbed his eyes. "I am now, you all right, man?" There was a long pause, not the comfortable kind, the heavy kind. "Yeah," Elvis said finally, "just wanted to talk." They talked for an hour, about nothing and everything. Music, life, memories from before the world knew their names. Jerry did not push, did not ask why Elvis sounded so tired, so worn down, so unlike the man who had just finished his comeback special and reminded the world who he was. But Jerry noticed. He noticed the exhaustion in Elvis's voice, the weight, the way certain topics made Elvis go quiet like he was holding something back. And when they finally hung up, Jerry sat in the dark for a long time, staring at the phone. Something was wrong. He could not name it yet, could not put his finger on exactly what it was, but he felt it, a crack running through the foundation of Elvis's life, a crack no one else seemed to see, or maybe they saw it and chose to ignore it. Over the next few years, those late-night calls became more frequent, always after midnight. Always when the house was quiet and the crowds were gone and Elvis was left alone with his thoughts. And every time Jerry listened. He did not offer advice unless Elvis asked, did not try to fix anything. He just listened. Because that was all Elvis wanted, someone who would hear him without needing something in return. One night in 1972, Elvis said something that stuck with Jerry for the rest of his life. "You ever feel like you are living someone else's life?" Jerry frowned. "What do you mean?" Elvis sighed. I do not recognize my own decisions anymore. I do not know if I am choosing things because I want them or because everyone around me expects me to." Jerry felt his chest tighten. "You talking about the tour?" "I am talking about everything," Elvis said. "The movies, the shows, the schedules, the deals, none of it feels like mine anymore." There was a long silence. Jerry did not know what to say because he understood what Elvis was really saying. Elvis was trapped. Not by force, not by chains, but by expectation, by obligation, by the weight of being Elvis Presley. And the people closest to him, the ones who should have helped him carry that weight, were instead adding to it. Jerry took a breath. "You ever think about walking away?" Another pause, this one longer. "All the time," Elvis whispered, "but I do not know how." Jerry wanted to say more, wanted to push, wanted to tell Elvis that he could walk away, that he did not owe the world his entire life, that freedom was still possible if he just had the courage to take it. But he did not say any of that, because deep down, Jerry knew something darker. Elvis was not surrounded by friends. He was surrounded by employees. And employees do not tell the boss to quit, because if the boss quits, they lose their jobs. The Memphis Mafia, Red, Sonny, Joe, Lamar, all of them, they loved Elvis. Jerry believed that, but they also needed him. Their mortgages depended on him. Their families depended on him. Their entire identities were built on being Elvis's guys. So when Elvis showed signs of breaking, they did not intervene. They smoothed things over. They kept him functional. They told him what he wanted to hear. Because the alternative was terrifying. If Elvis stopped performing, stopped touring, stopped being Elvis, what would happen to them? Jerry saw it clearly, and it made him sick. One night in 1973, Jerry tried to say something. Elvis had just finished a grueling tour. He looked exhausted, not just tired, but hollowed out. His eyes had that distant look, like he was not fully present anymore. "Elvis," Jerry said carefully, "you ever think about slowing down, taking a real break?" Elvis smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "Can't, Jerry. Too many people counting on me." "I am not talking about the fans," Jerry said. "I am talking about the people getting paid." Elvis's smile faded. He looked at Jerry for a long moment, and something passed between them, an understanding, a truth neither of them wanted to say out loud. "I know what you are thinking," Elvis said quietly, "and you are probably right." Jerry leaned forward, "Then do something about it." Elvis shook his head. "It is not that simple." "Why not?" "Because if I stop," Elvis's voice trailed off. He looked away. "If I stop, I do not know who I am anymore." That sentence hit Jerry like a punch to the chest. Because that was the real trap. Not the Colonel, not the Memphis Mafia, not the contracts or the obligations or the expectations. The real trap was Elvis himself. He had spent so many years being Elvis Presley, the icon, the legend, the king, that he had forgotten how to just be Elvis. The man, the human being, the person underneath all the noise. And the people around him reinforced that. They needed Elvis the performer, Elvis the moneymaker, Elvis the brand. They did not need Elvis the man. So the man was slowly disappearing, fatting, drowning in a sea of people who claimed to love him but could not afford to let him go. Jerry left that conversation feeling helpless because he understood something terrible. Elvis was not going to save himself. And no one around him was going to save him either. Because saving Elvis meant losing everything they had built on his back. Jerry tried to stay close, tried to be the voice Elvis could trust. But as the years went on, the calls came less frequently. Elvis was slipping further into himself, further into the machinery, further away from the man Jerry had known. And then in early 1977, Jerry got a phone call. Not from Elvis, from someone at Graceland. The voice on the other end was shaken. "Jerry, you need to come see him." Jerry's heart dropped. What happened? "Just come, please." Jerry drove to Graceland that night not knowing what he would find. But when he walked through those gates, when he saw Elvis sitting alone in the music room, staring at nothing, Jerry knew. He was too late. Graceland felt different that night. Jerry had been there dozens of times before. He knew the layout, knew the sounds, knew the rhythm of the place. But walking through those gates in the spring of 1976, something was off. The air felt heavier. The lights seemed dimmer. Even the security guards at the entrance looked uneasy when they waved him through. No one had told Jerry why he needed to come, just that it was urgent, just that Elvis needed to see someone from the outside, someone who was not part of the system. Jerry walked into the house expecting chaos. Maybe a fight, maybe a health scare, maybe something concrete he could wrap his mind around and help fix. What he found was worse. Silence. The kind of silence that sits in a house full of people who have stopped knowing what to say. Jerry walked through the foyer, past the living room, toward the music room where someone said Elvis was waiting. Along the way, he passed members of the Memphis Mafia. Red was leaning against the wall, arms crossed. Joe was sitting on the couch, staring at his hands. Sonny was packing near the kitchen, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in low, clipped tones. None of them looked at Jerry. That was the first warning. When Jerry stepped into the music room, he stopped cold. Elvis was sitting at the piano, not playing, just sitting. His hands rested on the keys like they had forgotten how to move. His head was tilted forward, his shoulders slumped, his breathing shallow and uneven. He looked smaller than Jerry remembered, thinner, older. Broken. Jerry cleared his throat softly. Elvis. Elvis did not look up. For a long moment, Jerry thought maybe he had not heard him. Then slowly, Elvis lifted his head. His eyes met Jerry's, and Jerry felt his stomach twist. Those were not the eyes of the man he knew. They were distant, clouded, lost. "Jerry," Elvis said quietly. His voice was slurred, the words dragging like they had to fight their way out. "You came." Jerry walked closer, keeping his movements slow, careful. "Of course I came. You all right, man?" Elvis smiled, but it was the saddest smile Jerry had ever seen. "Yeah, I am fine." He was not fine. Jerry could see it in every inch of him, the way his hands trembled slightly when he tried to rest them in his lap, the way his gaze drifted, unfocused, like he was looking at something no one else could see, the way his breathing hitched every few seconds like his body was forgetting how to work. Jerry sat down on the bench beside him. "Talk to me." Elvis shook his head slowly. "Nothing to talk about." "Come on, Elvis. I have known you long enough to know when something is wrong." Elvis let out a long, shaky breath. "Everything is wrong, Jerry, and nobody wants to hear it." Jerry frowned. "What do you mean?" Elvis gestured vaguely toward the hallway, toward the people in the other rooms. "They do not want to hear that I am tired. They do not want to hear that I cannot do this anymore. They just want me to keep going, keep performing, keep smiling, keep being him." His voice cracked on the last word. Jerry felt anger rising in his chest, not at Elvis, at everyone else. "Have you told them that?" Elvis laughed bitterly. "I have tried, but every time I bring it up they tell me I just need rest, or a vacation, or a new doctor, or a different pill. They have a solution for everything except the real problem." "Which is?" Elvis looked at him with eyes full of something Jerry had never seen before. "Defeat." "I do not know how to stop," Elvis whispered, "and they will not let me." Jerry sat with that for a moment, let the weight of it settle, then he stood up, his jaw tight, his fists clenched. "Where are they?" Elvis blinked. "Who?" "The guys, Red, Joe, all of them." Elvis reached out, grabbing Jerry's wrist weakly. "Jerry, do not." But Jerry was already walking out of the room. His blood was boiling now, because he finally understood what was happening. Elvis was drowning, and the people closest to him were standing on the shore, watching, doing nothing. Jerry found them in the den. Red, Joe, Sonny, Lamar, all sitting around like it was just another night, like nothing was wrong. Jerry did not waste time. "What the hell is going on?" Red looked up, his expression guarded. "What are you talking about?" "Elvis," Jerry snapped. "The man can barely string a sentence together, and you are all sitting here like everything is fine." Joe shifted uncomfortably. "He is just having a rough night. He will be fine tomorrow." Jerry stared at him in disbelief. "A rough night? Are you serious? He is falling apart and you are acting like it is no big deal." Sonny stood up, his voice calm but firm. "Jerry, you do not understand." "Then make me understand," Jerry interrupted. "Because from where I am standing, it looks like you are letting him kill himself." The room went silent. Red finally spoke, his voice low and controlled. "You think we do not see it? You think we do not know?" Jerry crossed his arms. "Then why are you not doing anything about it?" Red stood up slowly, facing Jerry. "Because it is not that simple." "Why not?" "Because if we push him too hard, he will shut us out," Red said. "If we tell him he needs to stop, he will fire us, and then he will be surrounded by people who really do not care about him. At least right now, we are here. We can keep an eye on him. We can try to manage it." Jerry shook his head, disgust curling in his gut. "Manage it? You are not managing anything. You are enabling him." Joe stood up now, defensive. "That is not fair." "Is it not?" Jerry shot back. "Because it seems to me like you all have jobs that depend on Elvis staying Elvis. And if he stops performing, if he walks away, you lose your paychecks." The room went cold. Lamar spoke up, his voice tight with anger. "You have no idea what you're talking about." "Then tell me I am wrong," Jerry said. "Tell me that if Elvis decided tomorrow to quit everything, you would support him. Tell me you would be okay losing your income, your houses, your lifestyles." No one answered. Jerry let the silence sit. Then he said the thing none of them wanted to hear. "You are keeping him alive just enough to keep him useful." Red's face flushed. "Get out." Jerry did not move. "You know I am right." "I said get out," Red repeated, his voice shaking with barely controlled rage. Jerry stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned and walked back toward the music room. He needed to talk to Elvis, needed to tell him what he had just realized, needed to find some way to break through. But when he got to the doorway, he stopped. Elvis was still sitting at the piano, but now his head was in his hands. His shoulders were shaking. He was crying. Jerry had never seen Elvis cry before. He walked over slowly, sitting beside him again. Elvis did not look up, did not wipe his face, just sat there, broken and raw and exposed. "I know what is happening to me, Jerry," Elvis whispered. "I know, but I do not know how to stop it." Jerry felt his throat tighten. "Then let me help you." Elvis shook his head. "You cannot." "Why not?" Elvis finally looked at him, tears streaming down his face. "Because the people who could help me will not, and the people who want to help me cannot." Jerry opened his mouth to argue, but Elvis kept talking. "They need me, Jerry, all of them. Red, Joe, the Colonel, the band, the crew, the fans, everyone. And if I stop, if I walk away, I am not just letting myself down. I am letting all of them down." "So you are going to destroy yourself to keep them comfortable?" Jerry asked, his voice cracking. Elvis smiled sadly. "I do not know how to do anything else." Jerry sat there, helpless, watching his friend disappear right in front of him. And for the first time in his life, he understood something terrifying. Elvis was not going to survive this. Not because he was weak, not because he lacked talent or strength or willpower, but because the people around him, intentionally or not, had built a cage so strong, so seamless, that Elvis no longer believed escape was possible. Jerry left Graceland that night knowing he had lost something he would never get back. 6 months later, Elvis was gone. 5 years had passed since Elvis died. 5 years of tributes and documentaries and magazine covers celebrating the legend. 5 years of Graceland turning into a shrine. 5 years of the world remembering Elvis Presley as the king, the icon, the untouchable star who burned too bright and left too soon. But Jerry Reed remembered something different. He remembered the man sitting at that piano, broken and crying, begging for help that never came. He remembered the people who claimed to love Elvis but needed him more than they protected him. He remembered walking out of Graceland knowing his friend was dying, and no one was willing to stop it. For 5 years, Jerry kept quiet, went to the funeral, paid his respects, watched as the Memphis Mafia gave interviews painting themselves as loyal friends who did everything they could, watched as the Colonel controlled the narrative, turning Elvis's death into another business opportunity, watched as the truth got buried under layers of myth and marketing. And then, in 1982, Jerry decided he was done staying silent. The interview was supposed to be light, a late-night talk show promoting Jerry's new album, the kind of appearance where you tell funny stories, play a song, shake hands, and leave. The host was friendly, the audience was warm, and everything was going exactly as planned. Until the question came. "You knew Elvis pretty well, did you not?" the host asked with a smile. "Any favorite memories?" The audience leaned in, expecting something charming. A story about recording sessions or late-night jam sessions, something safe, something nostalgic. Jerry's smile faded. He looked down at his hands, the same way Elvis used to when the weight got too heavy. The studio went quiet. Even the host sensed something shifting, something unplanned breaking through the surface. When Jerry finally looked up, his eyes were different, harder, sadder, filled with something that had been building for 5 years. "I do not want to talk about my favorite memory," Jerry said quietly. The host blinked, confused. "Oh, well, we can talk about something else." "I want to talk about the one that keeps me up at night," Jerry interrupted. The audience went completely still. The host shifted uncomfortably in his seat. This was live television. There was no safety net, no second take. Whatever Jerry was about to say, millions of people were going to hear it. Jerry took a breath, then he started talking. "Everyone wants to remember Elvis as this larger-than-life figure," Jerry said. "The voice, the charisma, the legend, and he was all of those things, but he was also a man, a human being, and the people closest to him forgot that." The host cleared his throat. "What do you mean?" Jerry's jaw tightened. "I mean that Elvis asked for help, not publicly, not in some dramatic way, but privately, to the people who were supposed to protect him, and they did not help him. They kept him functioning just long enough to keep the money coming in." The host's eyes widened. This was not the script. This was not the plan, but Jerry was not stopping. "I was there," Jerry continued, his voice growing stronger. "I saw it. I watched him beg people to let him rest, to let him stop, to let him be human for just a little while, and you know what they told him." The audience held its breath. They told him he had commitments, obligations, responsibilities. They told him he owed it to the fans, owed it to the crew. owed it to everyone who depended on him, but nobody ever asked what Elvis owed to himself. Jerry's voice cracked, but he pushed through. And when he finally broke, when he could not hold it together anymore, they did not get him real help. They got him pills. They got him doctors who would say yes to anything. They kept him propped up like a puppet because the alternative was too expensive. The host tried to interject. "Jerry, I think maybe." "I am not finished," Jerry said firmly. The host went silent. Jerry looked directly into the camera now, not at the host, not at the audience, at the people watching from home, the people who needed to hear this. "Elvis Presley did not die because of drugs," Jerry said. "He died because the people around him chose their paychecks over his life." The studio erupted, not with applause, with shock, with gasps, with the sound of a truth so raw, so unexpected that no one knew how to respond. The host tried to regain control. "Jerry, that is a serious accusation." "It is not an accusation," Jerry said. "It is the truth, and the people who were there know it, they just do not want to admit it." Someone in the audience shouted something. A producer off camera was frantically signaling to cut to commercial, but Jerry was not done. "You want to know what my worst memory of Elvis is?" Jerry asked, his voice quieter now but somehow more devastating. "It is sitting next to him while he cried and told me he did not know how to stop, and then watching him walk back into that life because he believed he had no choice." Jerry's eyes glistened. He did not wipe them. "He had a choice," Jerry whispered, but the people around him made sure he never believed that. The host finally managed to cut to commercial. The cameras stopped rolling. The lights stayed on. And Jerry sat there, chest heaving, knowing he had just blown up every bridge he had left in Elvis's world. Backstage, after the interview, Jerry was packing his guitar when he heard footsteps behind him. He turned around and saw 3 men standing in the doorway, former members of the Memphis Mafia. Their faces were red with anger. "What the hell was that?" one of them demanded. Jerry did not flinch. "That was the truth." "You had no right," another one snapped. "You were not there every day. You do not know what we went through." Jerry stood up, facing them directly. "I know what Elvis went through, and I know you let it happen." One of them stepped forward, fists clenched. "You are calling us murderers." "I am calling you enablers," Jerry said calmly. "There is a difference, but the result is the same." Another one spoke up, his voice shaking. "We loved him. We did everything we could." Jerry shook his head. "No, you loved what he gave you. You loved the lifestyle. You loved the proximity to fame. But if you had really loved him, you would have told him the truth. You would have let him walk away. You would have protected him from himself instead of protecting your jobs." The room was silent, except for the sound of heavy breathing. "You think we wanted this," one of them finally said, his voice breaking. "You think we wanted to watch him fall apart?" Jerry's expression softened slightly. "No, I do not think you wanted it, but I think you were too afraid of losing everything to stop it." One of them looked away, jaw tight, eyes wet. Jerry picked up his guitar case. "Elvis died because nobody had the courage to lose their job for him, and that is something you are going to have to live with for the rest of your lives." He walked past them toward the door. One of them called after him. "You just destroyed your career, you know that? Nobody in this industry is going to work with you after this." Jerry stopped at the doorway. He did not turn around. "Good," he said quietly, "because I do not want to work with people who would let a man die to keep a paycheck." He walked out into the parking lot, knowing exactly what he had just done, knowing exactly what it would cost him, knowing he would be blacklisted, shut out, erased from the official Elvis story. But he also knew something else. Elvis had asked for help, had begged for it, had looked at the people closest to him with desperate, dying eyes and pleaded for someone to care more about his life than their income. And they had failed him. Jerry could not save Elvis, could not go back in time and change what happened, but he could make sure the world knew the truth, even if it meant sacrificing everything. The interview was never rebroadcast. Clips were quietly suppressed. Requests for Jerry to appear on Elvis documentaries suddenly stopped. Producers who had once called him regularly went silent. Doors that had been open for decades slammed shut. Jerry Reed had told the truth about Elvis Presley, and the industry punished him for it. But Jerry did not regret it, because he knew something the Memphis Mafia and the Colonel and everyone else who profited from Elvis's name would never understand. Some things are more important than a career. Some truths are worth losing everything to tell. And some debts can only be paid by speaking when everyone else stays silent. Jerry Reed lived with that interview for the rest of his life. Every time someone mentioned Elvis, Jerry saw the fallout, saw the anger from people who wanted to protect the myth, saw the gratitude from people who needed to hear the truth, saw the quiet nods from industry insiders who knew exactly what he was talking about but would never say it out loud themselves. But there was something else Jerry carried, something heavier than the backlash, something that aided him in the quiet hours when sleep would not come. A memory he had tried to bury, a moment he did not understand until it was too late. A question Elvis asked him that Jerry never answered. It happened in the summer of 1977, just a few weeks before Elvis died. Jerry had not been to Graceland in months. After that night when he confronted the Memphis Mafia after watching Elvis break down at the piano, Jerry had kept his distance, not because he stopped caring, but because he could not stand watching his friend disappear while everyone around him pretended everything was fine. Then the phone rang. Jerry answered, expecting a manager or a studio executive or maybe his wife calling from the grocery store. Instead, he heard a voice he had not heard in months. "Jerry." It was Elvis, but barely. His voice was thin, distant, like it was coming from somewhere far away. "Elvis," Jerry said, his chest tightening immediately. "You all right?" There was a long pause, too long. Jerry could hear breathing on the other end, uneven and shallow. "I have been thinking about something," Elvis said finally. Jerry sat down, gripping the phone tighter. "What is it?" Another pause. Elvis was choosing his words carefully. Jerry could feel it. "If you could start over," Elvis said slowly, "would you?" Jerry frowned. "Start over, what do you mean?" "I mean everything," Elvis said. "Your whole life, your career, your choices. If you could go back to the beginning and do it all differently, would you?" Jerry thought it was a philosophical question, the kind of thing people ask late at night when they are feeling reflective, the kind of question that does not really need a serious answer. So Jerry gave a light response. "I do not know, man. I mean, sure, there are things I would change, but overall I am pretty happy with how things turned out." He heard Elvis breathe out slowly on the other end. "Yeah, that is good." There was something in his voice, something Jerry could not quite name, sadness maybe, or resignation, or something else entirely. "You doing okay, Elvis?" Jerry asked. "You sound tired." "I am always tired," Elvis said with a hollow laugh. "But I am fine, just thinking too much, I guess." "Well, stop thinking and get some rest," Jerry said, trying to keep it light. "You have got that tour coming up. You need your energy." Elvis did not respond to that, just went quiet again. Then he said something that stuck with Jerry forever. "Yeah, the tour." 2 words, but they carried an ocean of weight. "Elvis," Jerry started, but Elvis cut him off. "I should let you go," Elvis said quickly. "I just wanted to hear your voice. Thanks for picking up." "Elvis, wait." But the line went dead. Jerry sat there holding the phone, staring at the wall, feeling like he had just missed something important, something urgent, something he should have caught but did not. He told himself it was nothing. Elvis was just in a mood, just having one of those nights where the loneliness got too loud. Jerry would call him back tomorrow, check in, make sure he was okay. But tomorrow never came. 3 weeks later, Jerry got the call. Elvis was dead, found in his bathroom at Graceland, gone at 42 years old. And the first thing Jerry thought about was not the music, not the fame, not the legacy. It was that phone call. That question, "If you could start over, would you?" Jerry replayed it in his mind over and over, heard Elvis's voice again, heard the exhaustion, heard the sadness, heard the thing he had missed the first time. Elvis was not asking a philosophical question. He was asking for permission. Permission to walk away, permission to let go, permission to stop being Elvis Presley and just be Elvis, a man, a human being, someone who could make a different choice. And Jerry, not understanding, not realizing, had given him a flippant answer. "I am pretty happy with how things turned out." Jerry did not know then what he knew now. Elvis was not happy. Elvis was drowning. Elvis was looking for someone to tell him it was okay to stop, okay to choose himself, okay to let the world down if it meant saving his own life. But Jerry did not say that, because he did not understand what Elvis was really asking. And 3 weeks later, Elvis was gone. That guilt lived in Jerry for years, decades. It sat in his chest like a stone, heavy and unmovable. Every time someone asked about Elvis, Jerry thought about that phone call. Every time he played a song Elvis loved, he thought about that question. Every time he saw a picture of Elvis from those final years, he thought about the answer he should have given. He should have said, yes, if starting over means finding peace, then yes, do it. He should have said, you do not owe the world your life. You do not owe anyone your suffering. He should have said, walk away, Elvis, let it all go, choose yourself for once. But he did not say any of that, and Elvis died believing he had no choice but to keep going. After the 1982 interview, after Jerry spoke the truth that no one wanted to hear, people started reaching out to him. Not the industry people, not the Memphis Mafia, but regular people. Fans, friends of friends, people who had lost someone to addiction or pressure or the crushing weight of expectation. They thanked him, told him his words mattered, told him the truth needed to be spoken even if it hurt. But one letter stood out. It was from a woman who had worked at Graceland in the final years. A cook, someone who saw Elvis every day but was not part of the inner circle. She wrote to Jerry because she said no one else would believe her. She said Elvis talked about quitting all the time, said he dreamed about disappearing, moving somewhere quiet, somewhere no one knew his name, starting over as just a regular person. But every time he brought it up, the people around him talked him out of it, reminded him of his responsibilities, reminded him of the people who depended on him, reminded him that walking away would be selfish. So he stayed and he died. Jerry read that letter 3 times, then he folded it carefully and put it in a drawer where he kept the few things from Elvis he still had. A photo, a set list, a guitar pick. And that phone call, that question, that moment he would never get back. Years later, in an interview that almost no one saw, Jerry was asked if he had any regrets about his career. The interviewer expected him to talk about songs he wished he had written or albums he wished he had made. Instead, Jerry said something that stunned the room into silence. My biggest regret is not telling Elvis Presley he could quit. The interviewer blinked. What do you mean? Jerry leaned forward, his voice steady but filled with old pain. He called me a few weeks before he died, asked me a question I did not understand at the time. He wanted to know if I would start over if I could, and I gave him some throwaway answer because I thought he was just philosophizing. Jerry's voice cracked, but he was not. He was asking me if it was okay to walk away, if it was okay to stop being Elvis, if it was okay to choose life over legend. Jerry wiped his eyes, and I did not hear him, I did not understand, and 3 weeks later he was gone. The interviewer did not know what to say. Jerry continued, quieter now. So when people ask me about Elvis, I do not talk about the music, I do not talk about the fame. I talk about the man who needed someone to tell him he was more important than his legacy, and I talk about how nobody did. He looked directly into the camera. Elvis did not die from drugs, he did not die from a bad heart. He died from a world that refused to let him be human. Jerry paused, and I will carry that for the rest of my life. Jerry Reed died in 2008. His obituaries talked about his music, his acting, his guitar playing. They mentioned his friendship with Elvis, but only in passing, only as a footnote. But the people who knew Jerry, who really knew him, said the same thing. He carried Elvis with him until the end, carried the guilt, carried the truth, carried the weight of a question he never answered. And maybe that is the real legacy. Not the songs, not the fame, but the reminder that people, even legends, are just trying to survive. And sometimes survival means knowing when to let go. Elvis never got that permission, never heard someone tell him it was okay to choose himself, so he kept going until his body gave out. And Jerry spent the rest of his life making sure the world knew the truth, not to destroy Elvis's memory, but to honor the man Elvis never got to be. Jerry Reed gave up everything to tell this truth. He lost work, lost friends, lost his place in Elvis's official story. But he knew some truths matter more than comfort. If this story moved you, if it made you see Elvis differently, drop a comment below. What would you have told Elvis if you had the chance? Hit subscribe for more untold stories the world tried to bury, because the truth about legends is always more important than the myth.